Today we are off to Singapore to explore the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Southeast Asia, together with a pan-Nordic delegation led by Hanken Entrepreneurship Society. As our host we have Ko Fu from Singapore Management University, Olli Muurainen of Management Events, Timothy Ong of Style Guide, Kirsti Lindberg-Repo of Brand Audit Group, and Finland's ambassador to Singapore, Paula Parviainen. A truly memorable trip to one of the most exciting slush cities in the world.
So this is our incubator. And the mentors that we have here are probably the best in Singapore. We are able to get the CEOs of listed companies, ministers of Singapore, or the who's who to come and actually coach the youth pro bono, because they want to be involved with the next generation. Help them to become successful. And then, so this will be the hot desking space. So for those who didn't get into the incubation program, but they are still doing their startup, we try to bring them here close to us so that we can actually still guide them, provide them with the necessary support as well necessary. And this will be just a discussion space. 30% of our companies are not from SMU.
Not 30%.
30%. So 70% are from SMU. They could be students, alumni, faculty members, or staff. So we still, I wouldn't say put priority. We try to actually have kind of ratio. So majority from SMU, and then there's a good minority from non-SMU. And the reason to do that is because, first of all, there's a lot of demand to come and get our support and then to be involved in our ecosystem. And then the second reason is because we want some of these non-SMU founders to come here and then to actually to provide additional diversity into the community. We have actually startups from Imperial College. We have startups from other universities, from NTU, NUS, coming to us because they think that this is probably a better place for them. And then what we want to do is that we want to get them to intermingle with our founders, and hopefully new things can happen. Interesting conversations can happen, because the culture is quite different across the different universities. And then we think that entrepreneurship at the end of the day is just about who knows who, and then interesting ideas coming up, and then form new actually conversations. The good things is that just because we've seen so much things happening over the last few years, we are expanding our incubator to a bigger space. We'll keep this space. We're going to actually have another space. So that one is actually across a bridge. We're going to build a bridge across two buildings, and then the incubator will be located inside the bridge. That actually is something that's so exciting to us. We think it's going to be a game changer for us and for Singapore actually. We believe that one can become so-called the Sand Hill Road for Southeast Asia. Just because we are downtown business school, we are next to all the investors. We can actually do a lot of interesting activities together with the investors, together with the corporates who are all located around us. So then the bridge, of course, that in the startup world, it means something is symbolic. Bridge financing, bridge over value of debt from research to innovation. So we are going to really build a bridge, and then we are going to make sure that basically all the investors, or the founders, or the corporates, or the government people get to meet each other every time, every day, because we are so convenient. We are downtown.
Olli, you're a prime example of a Finnish guy or a man turning into a global citizen, really pursuing the global opportunities.
Nice that you came down here all the way to Singapore, my city.
Your new hometown. You moved from Finland and built up an international career. How is it to live here in Singapore?
Well, I mean, it's a very good place. Like within a 6 hours flight, there is like half of the world's population is around here. And it's a very dynamic city, and also very nice weather-wise in the winter. And I mean, I like it. It's a very well-functioning city and a very active, very dynamic region to work. I started my entrepreneur career already when I was 16 years old, organizing techno raves in the outskirts of Helsinki in the old industrial halls. And back then nobody knew who was Olli Muurainen, but I mean everybody knew who was Captain Freedom, the DJ, organizing a lot of these techno raves. So that's how I came into the business, and then did pretty much everything you can do in the events. So organizing parties or conferences, trade shows, and finally the kind of a modern invitation-only conferences that we are now famous in Europe and in here in Asia as well.
You created a company called Management Events. What is that company all about?
Well, we organize these conferences in 20 different markets. Our customers, they learn, network, and make deals in our events. So we are in a business of matchmaking. We are finding out what people are doing, what kind of investments they have, and then we are putting them together in our conferences and make the meetings. So that's kind of our business model. We are roughly 300 employees now in 12 offices. The recent offices in Asia are in Karachi, Pakistan, Bangalore, India, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Manila in Philippines. So these are the places where we have now the biggest offices in Asia. And we are roughly 30 million euro turnover on total, organizing maybe 200 plus events.
Currently I'm running Style Guide, which is an online portal that we focus on lifestyle and we focus on people, mainly based in Singapore. We cover stories from artists, designers, models, entrepreneurs, bankers. I think the idea behind it is actually to go in depth into an area of society that most people do not actually know or cover. Most people do not know about what is it like to be a musician, what is it like to be an artist, how do they live, how do they look at the world. So through this portal and through this series of interviews that we have with these people, so we ask them introspective questions about how they view the life, how they view what they are doing. And it's actually interesting when you see the differences in the responses from how the entrepreneurs and how the bankers respond to the question, and how maybe some people who are more creative, the fashion designers, the artists and the musicians, how they respond to the same kind of questions.
SMU is doing fantastic work in this field as well, through the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, with their current incubator, and with quite significant plans to even expand that into new facilities and new operations as well. How would you say, as a former SMU student, are you happy about this development, and has it been of help for yourself?
I'm quite happy with SMU IIE, as one of my previous startup was actually incubated under IIE. So they are very supportive with the mentorship, with the events, and I think in this last 1 year they've been being a lot more engaging, a lot more interactive. They're organizing a lot more events. So I see that as a positive sign for the future.
I'm currently here in Singapore visiting and organizing Nordic business competition with Southeast Asian universities. My background is very much in Helsinki and at Hanken. I have been working there for 15 years, and I also have my doctoral dissertation from there. We organized last year for the first time a business case competition called Nordic Business and Design Case Competition. In this competition, our aim was to connect Nordic companies and Finnish companies mainly with Asian market. Asian market is fundamentally different than any other market. It's a very, very competitive market, and here in Southeast Asia there's 700 million inhabitants. 700 million people. And for all the Nordic countries, this is the growing market, the target market number one. This is the growth engine of the world. But this is a very demanding market also. You need to have a very profound go-to-market strategy. You need to know how to come to this market, how to compete at this market, with whom to compete, how to position yourself. These are the fundamentally significant questions that you have to answer before coming to this market.
What about, we're today witnessing a little bit of a small historic event, the soft launch of Nordic Innovation House in Singapore. What is that?
Well, the Nordic Innovation House is something that is funded by the Nordic Innovation in Oslo, supported by the Nordic Ministerial Council, and it's reporting to the Nordic Ministerial Council and the Nordic Council. The first one was already started in the Silicon Valley back in 2014, and the second one opened in New York in 2017. We've been working on this for the past year now, together with the Nordic community here in Singapore. And the Business Sweden has the leading role here, just sort of somebody has to do the practicalities and be the legal entity. But it actually will provide like a landing site for the startups and for the smaller companies from the Nordics to come to this new market and get the support from each other. It's going to be for network, it's going to be for communities. It's not so much of a local, like a physical entity. But that might come when we see what the demand is and what the companies need. But this is like a way of working together. And I think that there is a lot that we can do more together as Nordics. Because the Nordic brand is actually not so well known actually, because all our companies have been quite competitive. So they are good in the same areas. So oftentimes we as countries, we just push for our own companies. But I think like now coming to the bigger markets, the more competitive markets, I think it really is important that we work together under the Nordic brand.
With regards to companies in the Nordics or others planning to come to Asia or Southeast Asia, why do you think Singapore is an interesting hub?
So first of all, I think it's very easy to incorporate a business here. So it takes like a day, even shorter. So and then for them to incorporate here allows them to just quickly tap into the Southeast Asia growing market. That's why you see all the companies, whether you're from Indonesia, from Bangkok, from Ho Chi Minh City, if you're raising big amount of money, you need to have a base in Singapore. You need to incorporate here because this is where handshakes happen. This is where transactions happen. This is where money flows. So for any companies, let's say from Europe, if they are looking at Southeast Asia, I think Singapore has to be or will be ideal the location just as a start before you venture out.
I think Singapore is one of the best places to be an entrepreneur, given the support of the government, the community. I think the entrepreneurship community over the last few years has been growing. I think also thanks to the efforts of Slush from Finland. So you can see that there are a lot more support within this community as compared to 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, I think Singapore is a very easy place for any foreign companies to come to Asia. It's sort of the first step because this is a city-state, a small city-state that is very rule of law based. It's got very good infrastructure, both business-wise and entrepreneur-wise and education-wise, and then the logistics as well. It's an English-speaking country, so you don't have to worry about, like when you go to China, Japan, it's always there is the language barrier. There is also more of a cultural barrier. So I was in China before I came here, so I see that this is a very much easier way for the Finnish and the Nordic startups to come and go into the bigger markets. Singapore itself is quite a small market for consumer products and so, but it's a good place to find partners, to find investors, to find cultural knowledge and a very educated labor force.
First of all, it's food. Singaporeans love their own food so much that they really want to live here. They are very family-oriented people. Educational system is very, very important for them, and Finland is very known for our educational system. The climate is fantastic, and everything functions very well. Of course, the standard of living is very high. It's nice to build relationships here.
Thinking about setting up a business in general, any types of generational or tips or hints about setting up a company in today's world?
Start with building your business around your brand. Don't come to this market with a wish to make it. You need to have a branded concept in which the design elements are already there.
Advice to them for starting out is, I think, to consider whether this is really what they want to do, and also knowing what they are willing to sacrifice to achieve their dream, and if they're willing to go ahead with that trade-off in order to continue to achieve it.
Well, I remember back in the old days when I was reading a lot about those great entrepreneurs that did their millions or billions. And often I was catching this one phrase that they say that you're never gonna give up. You're never gonna give up. You always go. Don't get disappointed. And that's true, still true. But also, I would say that today's world, you also need to be able to read the signals, the weak signals and the strong signals. That even if you are between a rock and a hard place, there is sometimes moments that you need to look at, no. This is not working, so it's not worth going here. It's enough if half of your decisions are right, because then you need to be able to add up, read the signals, and then go and correct it.
Just do what they believe in. So if you believe in an idea and then you believe that this is something that's important because you have a personal story to tell. So and then if it's a problem that you justify that is actually important enough for you to devote a few years to go about doing it, then you should just do it. Because entrepreneurship is a journey, it's a process. As you do, you learn, and after you become better.